deep dive on this, and that's why we're going to have a talk and also invited Seribu Guru Foundation Community Manager Jesha Vebrattie, Effendie, and she is known also as Jesha. So good morning, Jesha. Thank you so much for being here. By the way, you have a lovely name.
Yes, thank you.
It's
very dear to Caroline.
Exactly. It's something that's very unique for me. I never heard those names before, and it's really beautiful. But again, thank you so much for coming here with us. Before we kick off to know more about Seribu Guru, what's your take on the current state of education right here in Indonesia? And can we see now the spar or the difference between education in the capital city and other places or rural areas across Indonesia?
Yeah, so thank you very much once again for having me. And as for the question, I think our education system in Indonesia is currently trying to, crippling back to where it was before pandemic.
Okay.
And to be really honest, pandemic has, generated a major setback in our overall performances in education, especially those in eastern part of Indonesia. So if we were talking about education, it's going to be like a whole challenging issues, right? And it's a bit scattered what we are going to address. But in Seribu Guru itself or in our organization, we are focusing on those in primary education. And again, if we're going to talk about education, the disparities between Jakarta and other cities, not just second tier, but other provinces other than the capital city, of course, there would be a lot differences, not only from the situation or like the infrastructure, but also the learning outcome and learning qualities across different provinces and cities in Indonesia.
That's what our target is to have like a balanced education system throughout across Indonesia, not only in the capital city or like you said, the second tier, but also those in rural areas.
That's right. As you've mentioned, education right here in Jakarta and across the different provinces of Indonesia, both the access and quality of it are still very different. And as Caroline just mentioned, it's how can we sort of get on it on the same level, right? That is accessible and same quality for everyone. And of course, with that being said, it's not an easy thing to achieve, right, Jesha? And so what are the main challenges, can you share with us, that you have faced when trying to provide students with the education that they actually deserve?
Yeah. So oftentimes we found a number of issues. I think the first one is inadequate access to, the first one is to funding. And then the second one is inadequate access to human resources. So as you might have been aware of, in some areas we are lacking of professional teachers with specific knowledge and specific backgrounds. So for example, when I was teaching in Lampung area, they didn't even have English teacher.
Oh really?
Which
this is in Lampung, right?
I mean not too far, right? And they didn't even have, back then when it was like 2018, 2019, I really hope the situation is, getting better now. But they didn't even have like a dedicated English teacher. So the headmaster needs to, call some volunteers, especially from higher school students or even like university students who oftentimes doing, KKN or like giving back sessions for students. So they relied on these young people, and actually that's quite refreshing to see. But again, if we're talking about the challenges and the issues, I think the human resources would be the main challenges as for now. And that is one thing that we always found in different cities in Indonesia.
Right. Wow. And there's a lot of factors in regards to the challenges itself. And thank God there is Seribu Guru Foundation that kind of just put the, it becomes a solution to where this challenge and needs meets. Now, let's talk about the Seribu Guru. Now, you said before it has been on for a decade now, and it plays a big role, especially the education in Indonesia. How have you been so far, the difference since 2012 to where we are at today?
Right. So I think since the organization was founded in 2012 by KJMI, we've grown a lot in terms of organizational structure, organizational mission as well. And then we also have seen a different, progress have been made by the government, which is very, very, grateful for us, right? I think the challenge for now is to improve the quality.
Right,
The quality in Jakarta should be the same with the quality of, students in Borneo or in Papua, right? And then, back in 2019, 2018, before pandemic, because in Seribu Guru we have also some team that focus on substantial issues, right? Pedagogical. We found that the learning outcome is very different. So, for example, when we teach students in like second grade or third grade in Jakarta, it would be the similar output when we teach students who are in fifth or sixth grade in other cities.
Right. That's a
So,
really
yeah.
big gap right there.
That is a
A
very
few
big.
years there.
Yes,
Yeah.
a few years back. So,
Yeah.
so when we talk and we teach, right, to these children, especially in rural areas, we cannot, bring our Jakarta mindset, if that makes sense, right?
To adapt.
Yeah,
Right,
we need to adapt with, where they are at, with their pace.
right.
And sometimes, the teacher themselves, they also become less confident. Like, they wish to get like more access and opportunity
Right,
to update their knowledge
course.
and update their learning technique. And when,
Right.
and in the pandemic themselves, this caused like a lot of stress for these
Yeah, I
teachers
can
because
imagine.
they're not equipped
Wow.
with the, with adequate knowledge, how how I should use Zoom, and then
Exactly.
and while they are struggling to afford a cup of rice.
Yeah.
So
Right.
that's the irony, right? So that's why in Seribu Guru we tried as much as possible to invite different, people and different organizations from public and private sector to contribute to Indonesia's education.
Now, Karina, if you don't mind, I
Yeah.
want to
Yeah,
have a
sure.
follow-up question.
No, of
In
course.
regards to Seribu Guru, when you guys first started, back in 2012, which part of the region were you concentrating at?
Right.
And now, where have you ventured
Yep.
across Indonesia?
Yep. So Kak Jamie, the founder himself, he was working in the rural areas of Mentawai in Sumatra, right?
Yeah.
So he started the movement by himself. So when he was working, he visited one of the schools, and then he met some kids, and then he brought, because he was working as one of the team in the production house, so he brought a lot of different equipment, right, like cameras, laptop, and all that. And then it was the first time for these children to see this kind of technologies.
Right.
And he was touched, and he tried to visit one of the schools, and then tried to get their pictures, and then tried to teach some, general knowledge like Pancasila, and then like
That's our basic foundation.
basic, exactly, like who is our current president, and all that. And sadly, the result wasn't like we were expected before. And then after that, he just decided to, why don't I, because I have access to like these rural areas, why shouldn't I try to invite more people to teach to this area? Because one of our signature program is called Traveling and Teaching. So, young people, we all love traveling,
Yes.
right?
Karina is one of them.
Exploring different places.
Exactly. So while we explore, these new places, let's, try to spend 2 hours of our traveling time to visit nearby schools, right? And then, try to share anything that we have. So the spirit that we have here in Seribu Guru is everyone can be a teacher.
Yeah.
Like everyone can share anything that they have, and it's never too little, to
Right.
Right.
Whatever you contribute,
yes,
the
exactly,
knowledge that you do.
to the children. And then since then, he started the first official movement to Ujung Kulon area in Banten
Yes.
with only 3 or 4 people.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 3 or 4 people. So we were super small back then. And then we tried to, see where we can contribute more, and then
Right.
how we can gather more people to be, more aware of these issues and try to bring more young people with fresh ideas. Because, education is not only about the government issues, right? And then it's about how we can support our community and our society with our knowledge.
For sure. Yeah, and especially I really liked when you said traveling while teaching.
I know it gets to you.
I'm like, I'm actually thinking about it now. Now, for maybe those of us folks at home who are interested to maybe even volunteer later, how can we do that, Jesha? And I mean, you've mentioned before that there's inadequate access to the people coming in to help teach, right? And honestly, nothing is too little. Anyone can come in and share their knowledge and share what they know, and that is already something to the students. But what are the challenges do you think you've faced to gather more manpower in sort of delivering these to the students, especially specifically in the rural areas? Maybe it's not so much of a problem here in Jakarta because there's more resources, but out there where they actually even need it the most, what are some challenges can you share with us? And how do we volunteer?
All right. Okay, so as for the challenges, I think the main issues would be infrastructure, the quality, and then the access, for example, to internet, access to electricity. I mean, in some rural areas, they only get electricity at night, right? So, during pandemic, this could be burdensome, while some children, they cannot access, like charger or any supporting devices, basically.
With the pandemic, it's all technology based.
Exactly, exactly. When we are here, like Zoom fatigue and all that, these children in some areas, they cannot even study, right? So that's the first one. And then the second one would be equipping these, teachers with the right resources and the right knowledge and updated learning and teaching method.
Right.
Because in some areas we found that their teaching method is still, outdated.
Yes.
It's still, memorizing rather than, focusing on the other method actually. And then the last one I think would be the system itself, honorary kayak, for example, like guru honorer, if that makes sense. Like a lot of certification is still becoming a challenge, especially in some areas. For example, in I cannot mention the province, but there's this one teacher who has devoted their life for 15 years, but still hasn't hold like official, like civil servant. After 15 years of devotion, just because she only held like college certificate. So it's not like official teaching or pedagogical degree, right? So again, I think that would be another issue for our government to solve. I think those three would be the main challenges as for now. And again, we are very open to young people in Indonesia who want to give back to our society. So we have 43 chapters across Indonesia, from Aceh to Papua. Just open our Instagram page.
Oh, there you go.
And our website. So it's very millennial, very Gen Z. Just visit our webpage and our social media. We always update our schedule, like our traveling and teaching schedule. And then after that, we usually do a quick selection process. And then if you're selected, you will be provided with some we call it lesson plan session. So we are, we are aware that a lot of our volunteers, they are not coming from teaching background. So we are going to spend like 1 and 2 days for these volunteers to, to
like
to
workshop
learn.
classes.
Exactly, like quick workshops. So what to do, what not to do when these children cry, and then don't panic, and then what kind of things that can attract these students. So
So you'll come into it fully equipped.
Exactly.
Very nice. And it seems that this is not only a factor of challenges for the students, but even the educators also in the ecosystem of the school itself. And now, since Seribu Guru has been around for 1 decade, for 10 years, now you're spreading your wings not only in Indonesia, well, we heard you're also spreading to Southeast Asia region for free education. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so the one in other countries, so we usually do like an open trip, right? For Indonesians who are, curious to see what it's like, how's the education system in other countries. For example, in Myanmar or in Cambodia, right? And then we also do have our mediator or translator, and it's a bit different, the curriculum and the lesson plan, because again, we're not the expert in education. We're just people who truly care about access and all that. So we not only introduce about some basic learning, but also introduce Indonesian culture actually
Very nice.
Yeah, and again, because we believe that kindness is universal, right?
Yes.
It's not. We don't have to be rich, or we don't have to be a wealthy country to give back to our neighbor, and that's why we tried as much as possible to bring our culture. For example, like Chongklak, and then try to play together with them. Yes, introducing to more local treasures to our neighbor countries.
Oh yeah, I think that's also important. It's still important to put the fun into learning, right? And I mean, Caroline, you have kids, right?
I do.
Mean, when it gets too stressful or theoretical at school, I'm sure they look for something fun to sort of balance out the learning.
And that's how I see how schools is, especially right here in the capital city, right? It's not more like you were saying before. It's very textbook and you have to memorize. Now it's more what the kids have to be very critical. They want to ask about the students' opinions and whatnot, as opposed to like you just listen to the teacher. That's so very outdated.
Yeah, even when I was back, when we were both in school, it was still it. Now, Jesha, obviously, with so much traveling, you guys are scattered all over Indonesia. How do you, I know it must cost quite a lot, right? I mean, to send all the volunteers and of course, the resources that you need to help give these students the best education that they deserve. And to run all the foundation programs, how do you raise the necessary funds to continue to make sure the operations not only go, but make sure that it's actually to a degree of quality?
Exactly. So again, it's always been, a classic problem in NGO or social enterprise, right? So we have a different number of streams, actually. First one is, of course, we're very grateful for our donors, be it individual or organizational, from the companies or international organizations, basically. And then the second one, we usually also offer traveling packages for our volunteers. So that would be our second main source of fund, basically. And then the third one is we also offer sort of like a consultancy for companies who are also planning to do sort of like community development programs or employee engagement programs, right? How they can really, involve their employees to give back to society in some areas. So yeah, we have a total of 3 different streams, which have, worked out so far. And again, we also, the fourth one is actually we also sell some merchandises. For example, just like what I'm wearing right now, the t-shirts, and the tumbler, and then some tote bag, and then all of the profits will be used for the good purposes of
we also encourage as enterprises to do their CSR program with you too. I mean, that would really help itself. In regards to that, though, Jesha, what is, now you're, Seribu Guru has been in Indonesia, now going to across Southeast Asia also. What's the next future now for Seribu Guru?
Right, so as we have been in the primary education for about 10 years now, we found that the challenge would be on the early childhood development. So in some areas, the number of stunting children are high and they're spiking, right? And we know that nutrition has always played major role in the children's development, right? So our next plan is actually to build more smart center in some spots in areas that provide free education to early children, kids who are in their age of 3 to 7 years old, preschool stuff, right? And then the second one would be to distribute more nutritional food, especially to some rural areas. So we've been working really closely with a number of multinational companies to make this happen. So we bring around more nutritionists and doctors as well to some areas in Indonesia for free. So that would be our next plan.
Jesha, I think that is such a great initiative because, of course, other than great education, these children, the students need to have great nutrition, also food intake, especially for those in early childhood. So it's good that now we're tracking back to the early childhood days of these children. So for them to get great nutrition, even the parents also, they have like parenting, maybe you guys have parenting program to kind of like acknowledge educate them about good nutrition.
Wow. 2023.
Yes.
Yeah. The year.
Jesha, Vebrattie, Effendie, thank you very much for coming here from Seribu Guru Foundation. She is the community manager. If you want to look at their Instagram, it's Seribu Guru. It is 1000 Seribu, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah.
The foundation. You can see that. But what really enticed me is that traveling and teaching program. I know we have Miss Earth Indonesia right here, by the way, Karina Beswaran. I think you guys should collaborate. And even though I'm not young anymore, but I feel that I still have in my heart. And it is make your traveling more valuable, don't you think? When you're going to one destination, especially Indonesia, not only you're enjoying your holiday, but also you're doing something that's valuable for yourself and to the community. You're giving return back to
making an impact.
Itself. Yes, thank you very much, Jesha. And everyone, thank you so much for joining with our first discussion. We're gonna have a first quick break after this talk show. But when we return, we'll have more updates from around the world. So stay tuned with us right here on the C Morning Show. We'll be right back.